Easy. Like some plain.
I think you forgot something. Yeah. You dropped something.
Not nice. Not nice.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our July 13th, 2022 Somers Planning Board meeting. Would you please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Steve, would you please take the roll?
Chairman John Curry.
Here.
Vicky Gannon.
Here.
Nancy Garbino.
Here.
Dennis McNamara.
Here.
Zoom.
Here.
Jack Mattis.
Here.
Bruce Prince.
Here.
Christopher Zaberto.
Here.
Thank you. First on our agenda, draft minutes of approval, consideration of approval from June 8th, 2022. As you know, there was a couple of changes made. So if there's not any others, I make a motion, we approve the minutes with the changes.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And next on our agenda is an extension request from the Granite Point Final Subdivision Approval, steep slopes, tree preservation, stormwater managements, and erosion sediment control permits. It's a regrant. The property is located at 118-202. It's a request for the 20th 90-day time extension. Tim, do you want to say that? There's no changes since last one, I believe. Is that right?
This is one they're receiving plan for the DC. Finally, there's going to be plan. So,
Wow, speedy government. Okay. What the resolution of is from 2017-10 up to and including July 22nd, 2022. I'm sorry, original resolution is from 2017-10, and what they're requesting is an extension from July 22nd, 2022 up to including October 20th, 2022, as per town section 276-7C and town code section 150-13M.
Second.
Any discussion from the board? I make the motion and we grant the extension.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next is our public hearing for the Somers National Golf Course, and their application is for site plan modification for property located at 1000 West Hill Drive. What they would like to do is put in site plan application for steep slopes, tree preservation, stormwater management, and erosion control permits for the renovation of an existing cart storage building into a cigar bar and installation of 4 golf simulators.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Linda Whitehead, partner with the firm of McCullough Goldberger and Stout, here representing Heritage Hills Holding, the owner and operator of Somers National Golf Club. This is an amended application from what had been before you some time previously. As we discussed at the last meeting and as the chairman set forth, the application now is just for renovation of the cart storage building with an addition and a small terrace. This will house golf simulators in a new lounge area where cigar smoking will be permitted. There's some minimal related site improvements, including some newer changes in cart paths and relocation of some tanks. The existing stockpile areas and landscape debris are being cleaned up. The plans actually identify those areas and indicate that they will be cleaned up, and that work has already been underway. We are no longer requesting the miniature golf course and the related site improvements and the additional parking. Those, based on some discussions with the society and comments that had been heard at previous meetings, those have been removed from the plan and from the proposal. The new amenities really are part of the existing club use. They'll be utilized and available to Heritage Hills residents and the public in the same way as other parts of the club, including the golf course, are today. They're really meant to be sort of accessory to the club and the use of the golf course. These changes are fairly minimal. Do want to point out that with this limited work now, the closest residence to this work is about 300 feet away and about 50 feet lower in elevation. We responded previously to comments from Woodard and Curran. We've received their new memo. We have no problems addressing the few remaining comments. There are really some minor technical cleanup items. I think that our engineer and Steve have already discussed them. And that's really all our presentation for tonight. Rich Williams, our engineer, and Quentin Blue, principal of the applicant, are here to answer any questions.
Thank you. What I plan on doing is I'll hear from both our professionals, and then we'll open the public comment period, and then let's hear from the board members. So, Dave, you want to go first?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the applicant has made a presentation which has provided some background as to how the application has changed since the initial submission. I will also refer the planning board to the February 9th, 2022 memo from Tom Tuma, who is the building inspector, who reviewed the proposed uses and his opinion in the memo that was provided to the board that these are permitted uses, principal uses related to the golf course. I have no other further change or comments because of the change in the application. I think I'd turn it over to Mr. Robbins for any technical issues that may be.
And just for the record, those comments were in conjunction with the town attorney, correct?
That's correct. The town has retained separate counsel, Michael Sirignano, for this particular application. And he has been conferred, and he did confer with Mr. Tuma, and he's been available to the planning board throughout this application process.
Thank you. Steve.
From an engineering perspective, we had a series of comments from a recent comment memo back in June. We've received some additional supplemental information from the applicant, clarifying some of their plans for us and directing us to the information that we were looking for and correcting some discrepancies within it. The remaining engineering comments are really just clarifications for the record to make sure that the plan set is complete. But we don't believe that addressing those comments will in any way change the application or the environmental impacts that have been presented.
Thank you. Before I open the public hearing, just so you know, we'll hear everyone that wants to that's in this room, and anybody that wants to Zoom. We have a timer, 2-minute timer. So I ask anybody that's in a room that wants to speak on this issue to please come up to the mic, identify yourself, and we'll listen to you. Make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this? Go ahead.
When you come up, please state your name and where you live.
My name is Maureen Nagel. I live in condo 15, 430B. Sure. Can you hear it now? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. My name is Maureen Nagel. I live in condo 15, 430B to be specific. Okay. Condo 15 is located just below the country club in the area designated for the cigar bar and the golf simulators. I've lived here for 20 plus years and hold a unique perspective as there have been numerous iterations of the country club over that time. The concerns and questions I have, I will mention, are not speculative, but based on actual occurrences at different times and in varying degrees over the years. Let me say by starting that the inclusion of golf simulators makes sense as it fits with the overall vision of the golf club. However, I am highly opposed to the building of a cigar bar. One of the reasons is when I look out my back window, the cigar bar is right there where the shed is, okay? The majority of my concerns apply to both structures, but several will be specific to the cigar bar. A number of units in condo 15, numbers 424 through 430, 23 units to be exact, are all along the perimeter to be developed, where the area is to be developed, rather. It is important to note that our outdoor spaces, patio and yards, living rooms and bedrooms will all be facing these structures. As I said before, when I look out my bedroom window and my living room and from my patio, I'm looking directly at the shed that will be used. Now, I was under the impression it was to be used for the simulators, but now you're saying that's going to be the cigar bar?
When you're done, we can ask one of the applicants to clarify
Okay.
that for you, just to keep.
All right. I would strongly suggest that you come up and take a look and have a firsthand knowledge of what I'm concerned with and what we see. Due to the topography here, the noise level, be it conversation or music, is amplified, and these condos bear the brunt of it. I've had to go inside on numerous occasions, close doors and windows, and put on the AC at times to watch television or simply to sleep. What it is planned to remediate the increase in noise, the lighting, and so on. Again, I remind you that our living rooms, our bedrooms, and our patios and outdoor spaces are directly in front of these areas to be developed. What will be the hours of these operations? What type of illumination is going to be used? Where will it be located? What type of landscaping will be done to help dampen the auditory and visual impact of these buildings? From October through April, the area is barren of foliage, and we've had to look at debris, machinery, and so on. That has gotten worse over the passing years. Will this be cleaned up? Regarding the cigar bar, why can't it be housed in the building of the country club itself or over towards the grassy areas near the kitchen? Am I correct? There's going to be a patio area. Will there be smoking allowed outside? What about the smoke? How do you plan to eliminate it so it's not wafting into my house and the other condos? Will alcohol be sold, and will it be used for private parties? Finally, I'd like to address the issue of drainage and water runoff. This is a major concern. There have been issues of runoff from the club area onto the units. I remember several years back that the units 430A through 430D were the victims of major water and mud runoff from the club area as a result of a rainstorm. The patios were covered with more than 2 inches of mud and debris, such as champagne corks and assorted garbage. How will these issues be addressed? Thank you for your time and concern, and I'd like to hear what you have to say to remediate this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah, just raise it up a little bit, I think. There you go.
Good. I've been invited, Arthur
Who are you?
Singer,
Yeah.
803A Heritage
Thanks.
Hills. I've been advised by the health department that cigar lounges are not allowable in Westchester County. Please cite the exact sections of the health department code that you feel allows your proposed use. During which hours, and some of these are repeated from the previous person, during which hours will be the bar and golf simulator be open to the public? Is membership required by all? Will there be retail sales of smoking products? And will it include cannabis and vaping products plus hookahs? Vending machines available during or after hours? Question. What will be the age restrictions? Will women be admitted? Can you bring your own smoking materials? What is the relationship between the cigar bar and the golf simulators? Are they in the same building? And can you go back and forth between the two attractions in the same day visit? Must the golfer take part in either of the two new attractions? Must you be a golfer, to take part in either of the two new attractions? After all approving agencies have signed off, the applicant's attorney says that if one of the approving agency fails to give the green light to the project, or for some reason the project is withdrawn, you will never see a cleanup. There is more. As I said previously, the applicant is placed what we'll call soft violations of a dump debris area. Other areas of potentially more serious violations were never hash marked on the plan. The truck and sanitation wagon with expired registrations of 2015 and 2020. Has the applicant shown proof that the vehicles have not leaked gasoline and contaminated the subsurface groundwater? There are additional abandoned vehicle, gasoline and diesel-powered construction vehicles with possible groundwater contamination. Has the applicant asked for assistance from the DEC or the DEP? Oh, almost finished. The Summers Planning Board should require that the violations be cleaned up and certified by the building inspector prior to the start of the planning board review. If you want to, and this may not be entirely fair, but if you want to scare yourself, put the following into a web browser: shootings at cigar bars countrywide. 26 pages. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we have your name, please? We have your number is 803B,
Hey,
803A. And what's your name, sir?
Heritage Hills, yes.
No, your name, sir.
Arthur Singer.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Did you?
Yeah.
Were you the person who mentioned the Westchester County law?
Health Department.
Yes. Do you have the section?
No. It was by an employee of the Westchester Health
It's okay.
who brought up the issue. So I think that we should have the exact citation from the applicant to see if it's an allowable use.
I totally agree.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ralph Corvino. I'm at 436 Unit B, Heritage Hills. First, I want to say I have absolutely no issue with the golf simulator. I did it a long time ago when I was a kid. I started in the 70s. It's indoors. It's not going to affect anything else. There's no outside noise, outside fumes. I don't anticipate that much additional traffic against the core constituency that you guys represent. I do have some questions about the cigar bar, starting off with the terrace. How large is the terrace? How many seating? How much seating is out there? What are the hours? Very limited information. My concern is that the noise and the fumes from the terrace, the outside area, will greatly impact the units that are nearby. Haven't really heard much of that. Haven't heard much of the operational issues and the operational plans for the terrace and for the cigar bar. There'll be drinking. That goes without saying with the cigar bar. I went to one a while back in the Bronx. It was smoky. It was smelly. A lot of people drinking, very little food. If we're going on to the evening hours, we have the strong potential for intoxicated drivers. And that also would be a concern of mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Mark Gillet. I live in 429D, and I'm in the unit directly below where this project is going to be. He just talked about the terrace, and that was one of the things that I was going to say. The concern is pretty obvious. If you've got a terrace here and we live literally here. Everybody's going to be right there. I can hear conversations up the hill. That's not an exaggeration. So I would be real concerned about exactly what this terrace is, more than anything going on inside. The cigar bar, I have real concerns about, not the golf simulator. The other thing I wanted to mention is the screening. Right now, I'm sure you're probably aware, we have a nice little woods between us and them. The issue is this is an environmental problem that's going on throughout New York State. There's currently, starting 2 years ago, a beech tree leaf blight. What that specifically means is all the beech trees in New York over the next 5 years are basically going to die from this blight. The problem with the woods that's there is a very large concentration of the beech trees. They are already succumbing. So if you just even drive down the road, you'll see the leaves are like this and the beech trees are starting to die. It does not affect the maples. It doesn't affect all the other trees. So what I'm concerned about also is you drive now and you see this nice little woods and it's us and it's them and that's nice. 5 years from now, you are going to see dozens and dozens of dead trees in that area. And I don't know if there's any plan to take care of that. I don't know if anybody's even aware of it because this is a catastrophe environmentally for New York, and it has just started in the last 2 years. You can Google it, beech tree leaf blight. So I'd like some kind of idea. What's the plan? Are you going to cut down trees? If you're going to cut down trees, are you going to avoid the tulip trees, the oak trees, and all these things that are not going to be affected? Do you care? That's pretty much it. Just the environmental concerns. I just made it.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Anyone else?
No, sure, I want to
Yeah.
thank for that.
Paul, do you have anyone that wants to speak on Zoom? Can you ask, can you communicate to them if they want to? Is there anyone that's on Zoom would like to be heard tonight?
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, hi. It wasn't for this. I've never done this. I'm sorry. It wasn't for this issue. It was for another one. Do I just wait?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Then there's two of us on the line waiting for, I believe it's issue, number 5.
Okay. We'll be back to you. Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak on the Somers National project? So then I'd like to hear board member comments.
I'd like to hear from the applicant.
Oh, would you like to make some responses tonight to those questions and
Yes.
concerns? Okay, then we'll hear
I'm
from
going
the
to
board.
respond to some things. I'm going to let Rich
Sure.
respond to some things. Excuse me. Just to clarify a couple of things, the cigar bar would be operated in accordance with all applicable regulations. They are permitted at this time in New York State. Alcohol sales are not permitted in cigar bars. So it is not anticipated that there will be alcohol sales in the cigar bar. There is alcohol sales in the lounge in the clubhouse. There's also a terrace that runs across the entire back of the clubhouse that you can see here. And this is the proposed. The proposed terrace is relatively small. It's 441 square feet. So it's actually stepped back a little further than the existing terrace. As I said, the neighboring homes are 300 feet away and at a much lower elevation.
Linda, how is the cigar smoke dealt with?
So there are regulations on the type of ventilation that's required for the inside. Outside, I don't believe there are, they can even have a portion of their existing patio can be smoking. So there is permitted by law to be smoking on a designated portion of even the existing terrace outside of the clubhouse. Again, 300 feet, 50 feet down is not the way smoke moves. Smoke generally moves up, not down. This is, again, just a small terrace, and Rich will address sort of the issue of the terrace and the lighting. The hours would be no later than 10 p.m. There will be age restrictions as set forth in the law. So you have to be old enough to smoke to be in there. Sorry, I'm just trying to jump through a couple of things here. And I think Rich is going to address some of the landscaping and the tree issues.
Good evening, Rich Williams, Insight Engineering. I'm going to start with stormwater. I know that has been a topic that we have talked about in the past. All the new impervious surfaces are going to be captured and put through a subsurface infiltration system. We've done the soil testing since we've last been before you, and the soils on site are suitable to support subsurface infiltration. We've provided those certified test results. The only new impervious surfaces, again, are 41 square foot terrace. In talking with ownership, we're talking about a terrace that's only large enough to have maybe 2 or 3 small tables, which is only 2 foursomes. Remember, this is really in support of the golf use. The golf simulator is 1,900, almost 1,950 square feet. We do have landscaping proposed on the side that faces West Hill Drive South, and also on the west side, which faces the residence. And we have that landscaping against the building to help screen and green the bottom of the building. There is some tree removal for this application. There's 11 trees proposed to be removed. None are located between the existing building and the residences to the west. The only tree removal is on the south side, which doesn't face any of the residences. Some of the improvements south of the addition include, again, removal and cleanup of all the stockpiles, as well as there is an existing berm, if you remember from our site walk, that was constructed in the past. You know, there's a lot of odd catch basins scattered throughout this, almost looking like it was contemplating a future development. And on the downhill side of those was a berm that was misshaped. It had settled, and it allowed stormwater to move down through the hill in different directions. And the idea was, and we talked about this in the field, we're going to come in and reconstruct that berm, tie it into an existing high point down here. So any sheet flow that comes down is stopped, is dammed on our property, and is allowed to go into the ground. So that is still part of the plans. That was something we talked about early on. Okay.
Rick? Just for clarification purposes, if we were to approve this plan as you present it right now, in your opinion as an engineer, would there be an improvement in the current drainage situation that many in that 4 series condos have complained about?
We are talking about and I expect a couple of boos or jeers, but we're talking about such a small amount of impervious surface that if we didn't do anything, it would probably not be noticed. We analyze stormwater nowadays at such a microscopic level. It's almost more microscopic than the original modeling was intended to model. But that being said, it's my job to put things in perspective as well as advise. That being said, we are taking a series of impervious surfaces or areas that drain down the hill, and we're going to put them subsurface into an infiltration system. Point 1, that'll help. And point 2, the reestablishment of that berm is going to help slow the flow of water down coming down and increase infiltration into the ground. So yes, we would expect there to be an improvement, but to put it in perspective, if you're standing at the bottom of the hill, you're likely not going to notice a big difference. You're talking about an improvement of a very small increase to begin with.
Rick, can somebody hear me?
Yes.
All right, Rick, just wanted to know, I was under the impression that the stormwater drainage on the bottom of that hill is a 15-inch conduit. Is that correct? Or you're going to improve that? You're going to increase that? Do you have any plans to address that? Or am I incorrect?
So first, you're correct. It's a 15-inch CMP that comes down the hill. Second, that's why I shaped the perspective of the size of this application. It is very easy to start talking publicly and characterize a very small application into a very big deal. We're really talking about a small addition and a small terrace. That being said, we've proven through the hydraulic and hydrological analysis that we're not increasing flows downstream. In addition, we actually have a decrease in peak flows and we're attenuating some of the volume through that system. So no, we have no plans to improve the system, which we're not impacting.
Okay, I have one other question about your terrace. The land where the terrace is located slopes down from level where closest to the existing golf club, and it slopes down about 15 feet to down the hill. Is that terrace going to be on level? Is that going to be terrace? Is it going to be dug into the ground? How do you plan to design that terrace?
There'll be a retaining wall on the north and on the west side. So if you're standing at the existing clubhouse, it'll be at the higher elevation.
Okay, that's good. The other question is, which was the importance of reconstructing that retaining wall, because that has been so destroyed over the time. The other question I have, which I know you've sort of answered, but I do want to make sure that all the debris that's not natural debris that you're not using for the construction of the terrace or the building gets removed, including the vehicle distributed through that area. Can I get that commitment from you?
More importantly, Quentin, the owner, is willing to commit to that. And we've given you 2 levels of protection. First, he's currently working with the building department right now. So as Linda mentioned, we are currently cleaning that up. That is not being done willy-nilly. That is being done in concert with the building department. And second, we've documented it on the site plans so that you have the ability to come back and enforce.
Good.
That
Okay.
could be a condition. That could be a condition of resolution before CO, couldn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
it. That's,
And
I
we're willing to
believe,
have that.
that's it. I believe important, especially during the winter months when the trees do not block whatever debris is there. So I appreciate that commitment. Thank you, Quentin.
Thank you.
Steve, at the end of we went on a site walk for what we could call the prior iteration of this application, which contemplated a significantly greater impact on the land in the neighborhood. And at the end of the site walk, we were talking and you said, are there any further concerns? And I said, I want to go down that hill. I want to look, and you and I looked closely at the berm. We pulled back branches and leaves and found a drain. So having taken that walk, looked at that and had a lengthy discussion about it, could you respond to Rich's comments and let me know if you find his assessment of it will be sufficient of what will be done, sufficient for the application in front of us now and the level of impact that will be there with that application? Thank you.
Sure. So the application that's in front of us now, in accordance with New York State and town code criteria, manages the stormwater that it generates, and in fact, it improves the management of some of the existing impervious surfaces as well by capturing them, bringing them into subsurface infiltration, and removing that from the peak flow that is leaving the site down through those lower structures. When we walked the site in concert with the prior application, we were also looking at the area of proposed modifications that the applicant had for that greater disturbance, where that structure in the woods that was partially buried, we found that, and we're looking at how that related to that application. This application doesn't modify those structures in any way. It deals with its stormwater plus some of the existing up on the site before it even gets down to that point.
Okay. Thank you.
And just one thing to add on the record, in accordance, the town of Somers has a policy where it pays attention to the stormwater, but the actual letter of the law does not require stormwater to be implemented for this application. We're at a disturbance level where we're between 5,000 square feet and an acre. So under both DEC and the town law, per the letter of the law, we're not required to do stormwater. But again, you have a policy that we're staying consistent to.
Right. Well, you having described what you wanted to do, and having walked it, I wanted a response from our engineer so I
Absolutely.
could fully. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Public hearing is still open if anyone else would like to speak or ask questions, and also like any other board members.
I have no idea.
Mr. Lou, can I ask you a few operational questions?
Absolutely.
Try to sort of take notes with some of the residents that have voiced questions.
Excuse me, where is the concert?
I think we've addressed the fact that cigar bars are allowed in New York
But I
State,
walk by
right?
and I
We-
park it.
It's my understanding they are.
Yeah, mine too, because I've been to them. So unless these were legal locations, I have seen them in the county.
Serving alcohol.
Well, yes, all right. So that was my question. Do you intend to serve alcohol despite the regulations?
No, as Linda mentioned, we will abide by the state and local regulations regarding alcohol and the sale of alcohol in
Great.
cigar
And then,
lounges.
another mention of cannabis was brought up. Do you intend to sell
Yes.
cannabis?
No vaping, no vaping, no cannabis products.
Cannabis is not permitted in.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that. There was a resolution passed
Okay.
about
I-
2 years ago.
I meant to touch on that. Cannabis, it's not permitted under
Yep.
New York state law based on the town of Somers not
Opting
opting.
in,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, no, that's good. All right. I
So,
wanted to
so,
clear that up
yeah.
too. If anyone had any misconceptions that was gonna take place in Heritage, because
Yeah, but I will add that, we will sell cigars and those products to our
I would
constituents
imagine
there.
in a cigar bar,
Right.
you would be able to find.
You would have to,
cigars.
right?
actually have to.
Oh, you do. So there is legislation on that. And then this may be an engineering question about the ventilation. So, the picture that was encapsulated in my mind from some of the public that spoke is that there's just going to be this waft of smoke emanating out of the bar. Is that how those work, or is there what is your engineering plan to address cigar smoke indoors, and what happens to it?
Yeah, that's open doors. I mean, so we're going to put ventilation, that's required to actually keep the quality air sufficient enough for people to be comfortable and not have the smoke in their faces, like it was described earlier. So,
But the exhaust is filtered. It can't.
yes,
It's not like you just open a window.
Right.
and-
Yeah, so that's my question. Is there any scrubbing of that exhaust or anything to
Thank you for
clean
that.
it a little bit so that some residents who have concerns about smoke outside the facility
Yeah.
now, they're not going to be reminded?
here we're looking at products like smoke eaters. It's actually a filtration system that actually takes out all the pollutants and all the the chemicals that are created by the cigars and the cigar smoke out of the system.
And I think it was mentioned, we're not looking to increase parking,
That's correct. We've removed that.
status quo.
Mhm.
And the way you've explained it, it's whoever signed up to golf, which won't increase because we're not changing the dimensions of a golf course or any other amenities. So your current volume is anticipated to stay the same, correct?
Yes, I mean, with simulators, the idea of simulators is to have that year round. So that the peak season for simulators is actually in the fall and winter months when you don't play golf outside. So
And how many simulators?
there'll be 4 simulators and
4, which would hold how many people each theoretically?
4 each, as they
So
play,
it's
16 total.
Similar to what goes on in the summertime on the golf course.
Yeah, in a very small capacity, yes.
All right, I just want to clarify the volumes because many of the letters that we received under the previous submitted plan was concerned about traffic and all of that. And I just want, some folks may not have heard the last meeting where you all made it pretty clear that there wasn't going to be, you don't anticipate an increase in that level because this plan is to just sort of improve the current business
Right.
model that you have.
It's to really expand the experience for our members and our guests, to offer simulators and a cigar lounge for them to, take advantage of right before a round or right after a round, and certainly purchase a few products during the round.
Got it. All right. I don't have any other questions.
Quentin, it would
I
be,
ask for
Quentin,
clarification about, I think language was used about alcohol in conjunction with the cigar bar and was talk of sale, but also consumption. So just to make sure that we're being clear, because members of the public are asking about it in different ways, the sale of alcohol in a cigar bar is not permitted, correct?
That's my understanding.
Is the
Right?
consumption, could someone purchase alcohol elsewhere within the facility, bring it in and consume it in there? Is that also prohibited? Because I think the questions I'm
Yes.
hearing are getting to concerns about the
Combination.
mixing of them,
Right.
not whether you're purchasing them on site. So just to make sure the public's getting their
So it
answer.
wouldn't be a location covered by the club's liquor license. The liquor license allows for the consumption of the alcohol in the existing and the clubhouse building and in specific areas. But I think even the consumption is not permitted under state law in a cigar bar.
Thank you for the clarification, because I think that's what people were looking to hear.
And I need a clarification. The clarification I want,
And again, we'll comply with whatever the state regulations are.
I understood how you're dealing with smoke. But how are you dealing with the worst product in the world, which is a dead cigar?
The dead cigar.
I'm revealing my background and what I grew
Okay.
up with.
Are you talking about cigar butts and the
Yeah,
like?
right. There's nothing worse. How
Yeah.
are you dealing with that?
I don't have an answer in terms of anything out of the ordinary in terms of disposal.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if you have experience.
I think the first thing is we're worried about cigar butts being thrown on the ground and everywhere in litter and just the unsightliness. Quentin, remember, this is part of a golf course.
Yeah.
Right. That Quentin manages. It's all his business. He has to keep the grounds looking nice if he wants people to keep coming back. He has a vested interest in there not being cigar butts all over the place.
You got it.
So I'm sure him and his staff are going to stay diligent about cleaning up, picking up, because you don't want to become that type of facility where all of a sudden it looks run down, it's unkempt. People aren't going to come. It's a bad business decision.
You got it.
As far as disposal from there, it would be just through normal trash.
Rick,
Is cigar
Can I-
smoking currently allowed at the golf course?
Yes, it is. I was just going to comment, add on to Rich's commentary there. Yeah, the cigar smoking is allowed. We also have a separate cigar smoking area off the side. Yeah, currently
So that's been out.
off the patio. Yes.
Can I make a
It's in the
comment?
remote distance.
Can I make a comment?
Bruce?
Rick or Quentin, can I make a suggestion that the fan that you have, that probably constructed in that cigar bar can go out to the east side of your facility instead of going west where the residents are, and also either east or north where the golf course is? It's just a recommendation to help alleviate anybody else's complaints about smoke.
So I think Quentin is open to looking into that, but first and foremost, he has to comply with building code. As long as there isn't something in building code that prevents that, it's something he's open to looking into. The other thing I just want to point out is that the current cigar smoking area that Quentin mentioned is right here. The terrace is right here. It is 20 feet apart, 20 to 30 feet apart. So they are in close proximity.
I think some of the public, did you want to speak again, ma'am? Just come up. Yeah, please.
I just wanted to address the issue of smoke. It does come down to our units because up at the top where the shed itself has been maintenance area, and there have been maintenance workers that have smoked, and it does come down into the units. Now that's just cigarette smoke, and it's from time to time, and it's not, a lot of people. This is going to be consistent cigar smoke. So it's going to be wafting into our houses, especially during the times of the year where I want my back door open, my bedroom windows open, and be able to sit in my backyard and entertain people. So I have tremendous concerns along with my neighbors about the cigar smoke, the smell of it. It's a lot more pungent than a cigarette. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to address two issues. The first one is I just heard that they're going to look into these air scrubbers. Well, if they're going to look into it, it's not part of the current plan. And so that's a big concern. Tells me that they really didn't address it. The second involves the alcohol. I thought I heard that, there's no alcohol at cigar bars. Let me tell you, we brought our own in. And everybody at the cigar bar I went to brought their own alcohol in, and it was not monitored at all.
Was that New York State?
That was in New York City. It was
Different rules.
place in the Bronx,
I'm not,
near Fordham Road, I believe.
I'm not just playing devil's advocate. It should be different, could be different laws in the city as opposed to
Plus,
Westchester.
I think, and again, I don't want to turn the public hearing into a public debate. But I'm not hearing an increase in any volume. Do you currently allow alcohol consumption at the golf course?
Yes, we do.
Sure.
So, I mean,
And cigar smoke.
right. And so I feel like everyone has this vision and the way the plans were explained to me, I didn't see it. And that's where it's coming from, me reviewing the plans. There will be no additional increase or concentration in the amount of people coming in to solely consume cigars, right? I mean, or is there not? Did I miss that? The way that you guys presented this plan, the amended plan, it was that we're not putting in additional parking spaces because we're not expecting any more people to be here. This is just here to facilitate the current volume of customers that I have and extend the season into the off season with the golf simulators. That's what I understood, and I hope my fellow board members understood this second plan to be. And then just for you about the air scrubbers, if it's not a requirement under building code or a site plan that involves codified environmental stuff, that's an operational plan. We can't make that a contingency for approval. It's suggested, and it makes sense that if I was to build a facility that's going to house folks that are going to consume, I need some sort of air filtration. And there may be health codes, but we in Somers, that's a state thing, right? So we're not going to be the ones to enforce that from this board's perspective. Correct me if I'm wrong, town council, if they're on, or anybody else. But
Didn't we also, I heard something earlier tonight about including some modification that came up earlier. Now I'm unclear what it was, but we talked about adding something, a modification into the plans to address another issue. So is this something that the scrubber?
So
can be
that issue
added?
was directly related to stormwater drainage.
Okay.
And that is something that we have the ability to ask for.
Okay.
Because it's based on state requirements. Whereas if I told Mr. Liu he's got to put signs that say something, we can't impose that. That's not within our purview to do. So from the planning board perspective, there are other avenues that you can take to ensure that Mr. Liu is compliant with his business rules and regulations. This is not that venue. We're here to ensure that the plans comply with town code, that there is minimal impact to the residents of Somers and specifically Heritage Hills. And what am I missing, Sharon?
And can comply to state regulations too, as far as if it applies steep slopes and wetlands,
Right.
which doesn't apply in this case.
Yeah, it doesn't apply in this case. So I mean, and that's just for me also to clarify what the planning board's role is when we review these plans. It's multi-layered approach. We're just one piece of the bureaucratic pie, if you will.
Okay. Is the current golf clientele staying till 10 o'clock?
I wouldn't know that.
That's what I'm wondering, because we're talking about,
Yeah, if they're drinking or dining, they will be staying.
They will-
till 10.
so
They
you're,
can't golf when it's dark.
right, obviously, yes.
So, but they can go to a simulator and continue the round or enjoy,
Okay.
food and beverage. Yeah, food and beverage.
Any other public comments?
Yeah, I just want to address again the advertising and to your comment about the clientele. It is, meant to enhance the experience of our current golfers and their guests, and so we want to make sure that they have the full experience. And as Rich mentioned and Linda mentioned, they are smoking on the course right now. There's no rules and regulations against that, and we are selling alcohol to them on the golf course through our beverage carts
And in the bar?
and in the bar, of course. Yes.
Paul, do you have anyone else on Zoom that you know of? Or I'm sorry, I guess I should ask, is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to make a public comment on this issue?
As we wait, I'll comment on two more things. One is the appearance of the expansion itself. I think a question was raised earlier in terms of what it would look like. I mean, I don't know if we have the renderings here that we can just show the public. the exterior at least, and some of the interior photos or renderings of the golf simulators. But, we think it's going to be a drastic improvement over what you see today as a maintenance barn.
When you're also moving those oil tanks, right?
That's correct. That's, I think Richard had mentioned that as well, and Linda. There are some tanks that are near the cart barn today that would have to be moved further away from the structure. But you can see here down below are some of the exterior views. The cigar lounge will actually have a separate entrance. I think that was a question raised earlier. A separate entrance that does not connect to the simulators. So we are keeping that separate. A third piece of this that hasn't been mentioned, there's actually a small area in between the two as a cafe. So it's a grab and go, juices, sodas, etc., so that golfers can take on the way out to the round. But you can see the pictures on the upper portion here are examples of the simulators. They fit about 4 to 6 people. I mean, there might be a casual person here or there that just come to watch, the other 4 play, but you'll see here it's very nicely done. It'll be a beautiful facility, both outside and inside.
Any other board member comments? How does the board feel about closing a public hearing?
No problem doing it.
No problem.
Can we allow people to submit written?
Absolutely, written comments, for sure.
For how long?
10 days.
10 days?
Yeah, 10 days after tonight's meeting.
So for anybody who wasn't able to connect on Zoom,
Yep.
they still have the opportunity to
Yes.
submit their comments.
Jack, Bruce, Dennis, do you have any comments? How do you feel about closing a public hearing?
One question, maybe this is inappropriate and you don't need to answer it, but do
It's
you have
too
any,
inappropriate tonight.
do you have any estimates of what this development is going to cost? Have any construction estimates?
None of our business.
None of our
Yeah,
business.
and construction
None
costs
of
have
our
been
business.
changing
Yeah,
daily.
yeah, that really isn't any of our business.
Not our business.
Okay, I just want to just
One
thought
more and
I'd
you're
ask.
out.
Okay. I'm already out.
Or other public hearings, Bruce, just so you know. You want to.
So-
Our focus is planning.
I'm sorry, Dennis, I didn't hear you.
I said, our focus is planning.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So how does the board feel?
I think the planning sounds pretty in line. I'm fairly well impressed with what Quentin has promised to do. And I, for one, feel that we should move it forward.
Second,
Close the public hearing in
Okay.
10 days.
So are you making a motion to close the public hearing?
Yes.
And we
second,
had a second. All
Second,
in favor?
Aye.
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 Just for the public's record, just want to let you know, as far as, there's obviously some other concerns about cleaning up the site, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All those can be what we call a condition of resolution, which means that if they aren't taken care of, they won't get a CO. So we do have some stopgap measures in here to make sure things get done.
Good.
And if I'm reading your comments, Steve, correctly, the comments from you folks, as far as the engineering ones, the differences are minor, basically.
Yeah, we have some details that we just want corrected for the record in the application about some spot elevations and minor details like that, but nothing that changes.
And you okay? Okay. So does the board, should we direct staff to prepare a resolution?
I'll make a motion that we enact a resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice summer.
Thank you. Like I said, public comment period is open for another 10 days. Sure.
Oh, come on, man.
Taking his board. Thanks, Rich. He took his board.
Well, I don't anticipate a lot of public comment on the next issue, so you can do away with the 2-minute timer. Next on our agenda is Arsec Corporation and One Deans Bridge Road LLC. It's an application for a lot line adjustment for the properties at 380 Route 202 and One Deans Bridge Road. It's actually a conveyance of 0.3995 acres from 17.08-1-11 to 17-11-2-18. And for the record, the properties are both in a BHP zoning district.
That's the business.
This is business historic properties preservation. Mr. Allen.
Oh, good evening. Tim Allen of Bibbo Associates representing with me tonight, Dr. Renani of he's got Summers Professional Commons and Bill Canavan, who's One Deans Bridge Road Associate or LLC. As the chairman mentioned, we are basically transferring 0.4 acres between the two properties from Bill's side, which he has 2 acres, to Dr. Renani's side, which is the Summers Professional Commons piece. It's right now it's vacant land. There are no improvements proposed at this time. We did tell the board in our initial submittal, it will be considered for potential future parking at some later date, of which we would have to come back to this board for full consideration of site plan approval. So basically, it's a transfer of 0.399 acres or 0.4 acres from One Deans Bridge Road LLC to Arsec Corp to the west. And it's shown there in the hatched.
For a total of what?
For a total of, it'll create 1 acre on Dr. Renani's piece, yes.
No, I mean,
I'm
altogether,
sorry.
between all the parcels, how much land is it?
It's 2 acres on Bill's piece, and I believe Dr. Renani currently has 0.6 acres.
So it ends up being a total of?
It's 2.6 acres total. Now, Bill Canavan will have 0.4 less, and Dr. Renani will have 0.4 more.
Bringing him to a full acre.
Correct. Bring it to an acre.
That's the smaller of the 2
Or,
lots.
yes.
Right.
It's a lot line change. with
Dave?
No development.
I'm sorry, Tim, are you done?
Yes, sir.
Can I?
Let's let Dave finish. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. So the applications for a lot line change, and as Mr. Allen had indicated, there is no proposed improvements as part of this. So it is not a site plan application. This is simply a lot line adjustment. Per the code, and I outlined this in our June 1st review memo, there is a procedure that the planning board could consider for this type of application. It is an abbreviated approval process. There are certain requirements which were outlined in the memo with respect to not creating or will not create a nonconformity, will not create or extend streets of or municipal facilities, or require that they be extended. There's no conflict with the public interest, including possible future development or subdivision of the property. That the planning board finds the exchange or transfer or subdivision of land is not subject to regulation in accordance with the provisions of either the wetlands protection, steep slope protection in the code. And lastly, that this action under seeker, that's the state environmental quality review laws, is classified as a type 2 action. So those are the criteria that the planning board would need to consider if you wanted to follow the abbreviated approval process for a lot line adjustment.
Do you want to comment now, or do you want to hear from the public first?
I don't want to hear from the public. I want to make my comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I consider this to be very significant because I don't know really what you're going to do. You talk about maybe I'm going to create a parking lot. Well, this happens to be the Business Historic Preservation District. Those, of course, to most people are just words. But they aren't just words. And I need to explain to a lot of my fellow board members, because they didn't live here then, But in the 1970s, we were a town of about 4,000 parcels. And almost overnight in the 1970s, we created something called the Design Residential District. And the Zoning Board of Appeals issued a permit for 3,100 condominiums in Heritage Hills. And then a couple of months later, they issued another one for another 1,200 in Primrose. So within a matter of a couple of months in the early 1970s, we more than doubled the size of the town. Then almost on top of that, a large law firm with more than 50 partners came in from Washington, D.C. and met privately, which is allowed under the Sunshine Law because it had to do with realty. And they met privately with the town, wanting to know if they could get a special business zone for their business. And it was kept secret until the town came up legally with a business district that allowed IBM. And then we found out on top of the Heritage Hills and Primrose Farms that we were going to get IBM. And then on top of that, we found out we were going to get PepsiCo. They thought it was a good deal. So all of a sudden, this little place of 4,000 was just mushrooming. So in 1978, the powers that be got all of a sudden very concerned about that the town of Somers was going to disappear off the face of the earth. And they created this district to at least preserve what historically is our hamlet. And that's the background to why we have this district. So you're coming in and asking for a lot line change has me personally concerned, because one of the provisions of that is the area must be kept small scale business. There already is a large parking lot there, so I am concerned. What kind of a parking lot are you talking about? And what are you doing with the open space that's left? And how is that going to retain the historic features of the town? I'm quite concerned with what I don't know that's going to happen. It sounds very simple, but you have invested money in a lot line change, and I don't know what the bloody blazes it's for.
I don't disagree with you, Nancy. But the consideration is that if and when Dr. Renani plans on a parking lot or just a basically reserved parking lot to just overflow for the existing parking that's there now, you will have full site plan and vetted review of that. And certainly we're going to be talking about the same things you just brought up: size, character, everything you mentioned. So that's, we're not taking that away from you. It's just Bill is looking to sell his property. The timing was right, and the land's not being used by Bill. So it made sense that this be considered at this time.
You guys have any comments that are zooming, or anybody here before open the public hearing? No? Make a motion. We open a public hearing.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone like to speak?
Good evening, members of the town planning board, the planning board. Dennis Timone with Margaret Timone, 384 Route 202, Somers, New York. I'm the next door neighbor of Mr. Canavan and Dr. Renani. I can say to you that over the last 40 years with Dr. Renani and last maybe 15 years with Mr. Canavan, I could have asked for nicer neighbors, okay? Now, we have this lot line change, which is really a subdivision of his property for the purposes of installing a parking lot. There's no two ways about it. And I don't think that the plan of the lot line change should be taken into consideration until we have the plan, architectural plan and renderings of the parking lot. If this is not something that's going to happen for the next 20 years, then there's no use going into the lot line change If the planning for the parking lot's going to take place within the next couple of months, it should coincide with the application that's before the board. Mr.
Thank you.
Allen?
So it's a pleasure. As this board knows, and Dennis surely knows, nothing happens in 2 months in this town. And that's no disrespect. This is going to take some time, and it's not going to come in tomorrow. This is just basically convenience of Bill selling his property and this being presented. If it would help the board, I could provide a sketch of what this would look like. I've done a sketch. I think I had maybe 28 to 30 parking spaces that could fit there. It's not a large scale, huge parking lot. It's not a lot of area. We're only talking about 4/10 of an acre here. So it's, but nonetheless, we're not at a point where we're ready for site plan. We're not going to submit a site plan to you that's not ready, and we're not ready at this point.
Right, and nor would you do waste time and money on a site plan if you don't have the land to build it on.
Well,
either,
and then,
right?
and as we know, site plans are only good for a year, and if we're out 5, 6, 10 years on this.
Well, you can ask for a lot of extensions.
That was the friend point.
Sorry,
It's a whole other
inside
animal.
joke related
Yes.
to another plan.
Got the wrong guy up there talking about extensions.
Lord knows he knows.
Having said that, there are no immediate plans to come back to this board with a site plan. And Ami, correct me if I'm wrong. But
Yeah, I mean,
that is the plan.
I gather my colleagues on the board's concern about the preservation district, and I understand why it's been created. My only, and I understand why the resident or the neighbor would be concerned about, making sure it all lines itself up. My only question would be, are there lot size zoning requirements in the historic district? And if there are, does this lot line change conform with them, right? So we're going from 0.6 to a full acre.
Or does it trigger something?
Right, and we're dropping down from a 2.5 to a 2.1 acre. If that is all permissible to happen in that particular district, that would satisfy my question.
We're not creating any non-conformance.
And we've checked that.
Okay. He's got 2.1.
2.1.
Bill, 2. Bill can. 2.1. Sorry, sir. Can you get up to the mic? Yeah, sure.
Sorry, yeah.
Just identify yourself for the public.
So it's Bill Canavan, and I concur with Judge Timone. We have great neighbors. We're lucky. If this were to occur, my lot would go from 2.1 to 1.7 acres. And Dr. Renani's would go to a full acre.
Okay, from 0.6 to a full acre.
That's correct. And then the planner can chime in if that's legit or complies or whatever, but I think it does.
Yeah, the minimum lot size in this district is 12,000 square feet. So they're both well above.
Yeah.
Quarter of an acre. Yeah.
So, yeah, so I think it all conforms. I think to the engineer's point, if we have a problem with the site plan when it's produced.
That's a different animal.
Right, that's a whole different animal. And that for the purposes of, again, I use the word bureaucracy, we need to approve the lot line change long before any site plans can be presented in front of us. We wouldn't even be able to approve a preliminary plan if he didn't own the land. So that's why I think this has to happen first, regardless of the timeline behind it. Right?
Technically, I don't want to, this could technically be done by easement in the zone. It's very complicated, but we would want to do that. Obviously,
This is the cheapest way to do it.
Yeah.
Any other public comments? Would want to keep it open or close it?
I think I would like to. keep it
I'll make a motion to close it. I do think this is a simple lot line change.
Is there a second?
Second.
No,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
no.
Are you guys voting?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I believe that's 6 yeas and 1 nay. So then I'm assuming that the board has no problem directing staff to prepare a resolution?
And accept public comment for in writing for 10 days.
Yes. I'll make that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you.
Supreme Court.
Yeah. Okay, next on our agenda is Master and Tony Brothers preliminary approval of subdivision application for the property located at 2 Amawalk Point Road. Subdivision steep slopes, stormwater management and erosion control permits for the subdivision of a 5.6 acre parcel into 2 lots. And for the record, this property is located in the R80 zone.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Paul Lynch from Putnam Engineering, and I'm representing the Masterone. This is a 2 lot subdivision located on Amawalk Point Road. We're taking the 5.58 acres and breaking it down to like a little over 3 and a little over 2. I think it's like 3.4 and 2.2 or something to that effect. The proposed new site, which is we're calling lot number 2, is up on the top of the hill, or as you're moving towards the top of the hill. It will have an on-site wastewater treatment system, its own well. There'll be stormwater management practices with rain gardens and an infiltration system. The runoff from the roof for the house will go to the rain garden. The runoff from the driveway will go into the infiltration system. We have submitted a tree cutting application. The number was finalized at 56. So we'll be resubmitting that to the town. There had been some confusion in our last submittal where we had 2 different numbers. So we just verified that we're at 56. The lot itself has less than an acre of disturbance. And when combined with the disturbance that's on lot 1, we're still under the thresholds that involve dealing with New York City DEP. We will require a stormwater pollution prevention coverage from the New York State DEC because we obviously exceed 5,000 square feet of disturbance.
I just want to clarify something. I read that this is a 5.6 acre parcel, but you said 5.8, which is correct.
It's 5.6.
Okay. 5.6? Okay.
And the lots will be basically 2, 2, and 3, 4.
Okay. Dave and Steve?
I have no comments.
We had minor comments from our June memo. We've not received a resubmittal, but Mr. Lynch and I have been in correspondence, and so we understand the nature of how they're going to be addressed. Addressing our remaining open comments are really to correct the record and frankly, some comments because we're engineers and we can't help ourselves, but try to understand some of the details. But responding to those comments won't impact the overall scope of the development or the environmental impacts or move anything around on the site.
Okay. If there isn't any board member questions or comments, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I have one question.
Okay, let him speak and then I'll hear from you. Okay, go ahead.
I just had one question. 56 trees seems a lot of trees. Am I right, wrong? Is it a very wooded area?
It's a very wooded area.
What triggers it? DBH or what?
12.
12, yeah. Did you hear what I said, Bruce? It's a 12-inch caliper, diameter breast height or caliper. I don't know which way to figure it would trigger it. And that's not really a big tree.
Okay. Okay. No, I know the 12
I don't know if they're big or not. I'm just saying that, it could be a lot of trees 12 to 15, 18 inches.
Okay, I was just a thought.
Okay. Yes, I'm sorry. Somebody from the public wanted to speak, please. Just
Just state your name.
say your
and
name
your
for the
residence.
record, please. Thanks.
My name is Louis Guapa. I'm here representing my father in the back because there's a language barrier. We live on 2527 Amawalk Road. My father's concern is about the stormwater management and the steep slope because at the moment I live right behind where they're going to be constructing this building, and I just want to make sure that the stormwater or any type of water that from natural slopes or anything doesn't come back down onto our property, because at the moment the first lot where they currently are constructing, we've been in the house before they started construction, and there's some problems where there's a steep slope that slides towards our property, and we have a garage in the back where that sometimes fills up with water because of a hard rainstorm or any type of rainstorm. So I just want to make sure here that there's going to be a solution for, or no steep slopes that end up bringing all that water back down to the property that we are.
Was that happening? There is no construction going on now, so it's been happening all along?
No, the new construction that they have on their first lot.
On the first lot, okay.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure that on their second lot, which they're going to try to construct, I just want to make sure that there's no stormwater or a proper management of water, so that doesn't slide down towards our property, because we are right behind them.
Understand.
Yep. That's all.
Can you
Okay.
show us
Do you-
on the diagram where you are?
Yes.
This whole area right around here, we're literally right behind them. Down in this area right here. I don't know if I can show it any better, but this is the area where we are located.
And that's all where your garage is too?
Yeah, so the house would technically be, house is right here, and the garage would be down here. If you've seen the first lot.
Yes.
You've seen that little red barn?
Yes.
Yeah, so
That's,
like somewhere,
that's good.
oh, that,
I think that's good.
yep. Yeah, so around this area, I guess they've just planed it out with dirt and everything. But the way that they laid it out, there's sort of like a steep slope right around where they planed it out, and sometimes when it rains, it runs right into that little shed that we have, and water gets inside of it.
That shouldn't happen.
So I just want to make sure with this new construction, there won't be any water sliding back down or, running off down onto our property.
We made a requirement.
Steve, where he's talking.
I do, yes. And I'll follow up with the town engineering technician to confirm how he's reviewing the stormwater for that lot that is under construction now. The planning board did have a site walk of both lots, but focused on the second lot. It was in the rain, if I recall, that day. And Paul, maybe you can point to kind of where the high point in the new lot is and where the drainage divide is relative to your area of disturbance, because there is a ridge that runs through the second lot, and I want to understand the public's concern, or put the public's concern in context with your development, which way the water is draining. So what you're showing
Draining this.
Onto the on the other road.
Yeah,
Yep.
the other road. And we'll take a look at what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if we could just, we can set up a date or something. I could just walk with you. That's not really big a problem. It's just, we were there before the construction already started, and it would rain, when we were there, and we would have perfectly fine. But there is a little bit of a slope pointing down towards that little shed, and it does get filled up with water sometimes. Yeah, so, yeah.
Redirect it away to another catch basin down here.
Yeah.
So whenever,
Yeah.
that's gonna work out.
Yep, that's all it is. That's all my father's concern and all I had
Paul,
about
can
that
you-
question.
Between him and Steve and our town engineer, we'll take care of that.
I think,
All right.
yeah, we'll look at that and address it, make sure that that's.
All right, thank you, sir.
John, I'd like to make one comment, which I've made before, and I think it's appropriate at this proposal. We continually get plans for the exact improvement and the property lines for what is being constructed. However, I haven't been, since I've been on the board, ever received a drawing that includes the property line and at least one building of the adjacent properties. And this makes it very difficult for us to understand where the other developments are in the adjacent properties to the ones that are being developed. I've mentioned this before, and I don't understand why we can't request at least one drawing that shows a overlay of the properties that are being developed and the surrounding, at least a couple of the surrounding properties and the location of any buildings in those properties, because we're in the blind here.
But there has been plenty in the past where we've seen adjacent property owners' structures.
Yeah,
We
I
have
think
the
the
ele-
sidewalks is supposed
Yeah.
to
And we
remedy
have-
that as
and we have
well
the
as
elevations,
Google Earth.
which
We get
will
those,
extend to what we have to be concerned with runoff.
right, the elevation maps,
Yeah.
those are usually included, they call them terrain maps, right, that show the different lines
Topographical.
of. Yeah, I mean, from that, I can usually deduce
Yeah.
Street view maps.
which way it's going, the runoff.
Yeah, but you don't know where it's going. You don't know what it's going on to. You don't know if it's going, if you don't know if the drain is going on to a structure that's 10 feet from the property line or 50 feet from the property line. And I mean, if you guys are satisfied with it, that's fine. I think it's an inappropriate way to analyze a development in a community where there's already existing buildings. My 2 cents.
Okay, I think there was someone else from the public going to speak.
I own the land.
Oh, did you want to speak? Okay.
Come on down.
Hi, my name is Paul Masterone. I own Amawalk Point. I'll have my father and tomorrow and next day, we'll reshape that thing to, I'll have him go there with the excavator and reshape it and fix. That's just, someone just has to walk over and just, tell us their concern. We work with everybody, so.
That's what we wanted to hear.
I'm sure that can be worked out between Mr. Lynch and
Yeah.
Mr. Wolfel here at the town.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Any other public comments? Any other board member comments? No. All right, then I make a motion to close the public comment period.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And once again, anybody wants to 10 days written comments, would you like to, you feel comfortable having the staff prepare a resolution?
I would be.
Okay, I'll make that motion that we direct staff to prepare a resolution on this project.
I'll second that again.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, while you're putting up your next one, Masterone Brothers, Inc., Wetland and Watercourse Protection Permit application for improvements in the vicinity of 12 Hillside Drive. This is application to widen and provide stormwater improvements to approximately 550 linear feet of Hillside Drive from the intersection of Overhill Road. And for the record, this property's southwest of the intersection of Overhill Road and Hillsdale Drive, and it's in an R40 district.
This is 12 Hillside Drive, which is located on Hillside Drive. Basically, the lot is 500 and some odd feet in from the intersection with Overhill. As part of our process to receive a building permit to be able to construct a house on that lot, we've had to prepare plans to widen the existing road driveway to meet the common driveway standards of 16 feet. So basically, we have about 650 square feet of new impervious pavement that's going to be added. We're going to be adding some drainage improvements in terms of being able to collect sediment and that sort of stuff before water gets discharged into the actual wetland itself. We've had to apply for a New York State DEC wetlands permit. The actual notice of complete application was published in the Somers Record, I believe, 2 weeks ago. And that process is winding down with our being able to receive that permit. We have been in contact with the fire board here in the town of Somers. We've had 2 Zoom meetings. We have another meeting scheduled for next Wednesday, and that's centered around having the ability to have a fire truck like their ladder truck to be able to back down that road and be able to turn around and drive out. So we've been working out those details. Actually, I think I sent some information to Steve, but I don't know if he had the opportunity to look at it today, just to update him where we were. But basically, there's a template out of the 2020 fire code that we're using, where you basically have the hammerhead being basically that shape, where you have a 20-foot width, and you just make sure your turning radiuses are fitting within that. There's a 70-foot depth and a 20-foot width on, where you're actually driving. So we're using that template. That's what we're pursuing with the fire board.
Mr. Lynch's summary is correct. He and I had some correspondence on this. He sent me that excerpt from the fire code. Really, for the board here, I think we're awaiting kind of that final determination and buy-in from the fire prevention board on their acceptance of that turnaround before the site layout is finalized.
You anticipate a problem, or it's hard to tell?
I think, Paul, you're showing right now the maximum extent of disturbance on this plan, correct?
I don't know if you can see this.
That's a little tough.
This area that encompasses what I've shaded in, that meets the fire code standard as set by the fire apparatus access roads in the 2020 fire code of New York State, which is this little diagram, which you can't see, but this is what we're using with the fire board.
I guess my question, Paul, is that diagram reflected in your site plan?
Yes, it is. Yes, we've made all the changes to incorporate that, and that's what we'll be talking about at next Wednesday's Zoom meeting.
I'll make a motion to open the public comment period. Second, all in favor? Anyone here from the public to speak? Yes, sir.
I have a question on the phone.
Hello, I'm Steve Sturman. The home at the end of Hillside Drive.
Yeah, just go closer to the mic.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm at the end of the home at Hillside Drive.
Right.
I've been the sole manager of that road, driveway, for 35 years because the town has refused to help. At one point it was a tarmac. It was a blacktop road, and then the town came in and while building the water district, basically disrupted the road, and the blacktop is gone. I can tell you that nobody turns around on that road. UPS truck, FedEx trucks, they all back down because there's there's no way to turn around unless you come into the driveway to my garage. I understand that they're looking to widen it to 16 feet. Right now, the majority of that section of the road is about 9 to 11 feet, as I've gone down there with a tape measure. And then it drops down into a fairly steep, a steep drop down that goes into the wetlands. So I gotta have 2 concerns. One, and the water line goes along that road. I was wondering, does the construction of a driveway go on top of the water line, or does it have to go to the side of the water line? So that was my question for the board. My concern, my personal concern, is during the construction process of this, how am I going to get out? Because there's no way to park a car to the side of anything there. It's basically the road is 9 to 11 feet long. The widest that I've measured, and I've walked it for 35 years, is 14 feet at the moment. And that's basically by my home. So I don't, I guess the question for the board is, does a blacktop go on top of the existing water line? Because there's 3 hydrants and a water line that goes up onto 118. It veers off from my home up to 118 and services the homes on 118.
That's a question for the two engineers.
The roadway would go over the top of the existing water main.
So that's
the water main is at least 4 feet deep.
so
and there's no
that's
concern there.
permissible.
Yes.
Okay. So and then what questions? What assurances can I get? Am I dependent on the goodwill of the developer for me to get in and out of that road? Because I assume there's going to be a construction process for whatever time, and there's really no parking for anyone there.
I'm assuming you've thought about this in some kind of staging place for construction. Or you have, somebody has, I'm assuming.
Yes, we would start with the construction up at the driveway area to access the actual lot, so that you actually have a staging area at that point. So in other words.
Okay.
Figure that out first. So you clear that out first, and then basically once you have that stabilized, you would then go ahead and do your cutting along the western side of Hillside to cut the brush, remove the brush. You're using small equipment such as a backhoe. So because we're only doing a 2-foot widening, I only need basically a 2-foot bucket to be able to do that, to do my excavation, to put in my item 4, and then ultimately pave after that. So there'll be a backhoe which can easily get out of your way if you're driving down the road. He will see you and you will see him. Because it is, we do have a pretty good straightaway there. So that's basically it, where you're going to do that widening, get that aspect of it done, and then go ahead and you can do your pond features after that, and then ultimately at the end you're going to do your paving. But you can do the work because you're only clearing it out from the existing width to get your new width, and you're working in the new width area. You're not working in the existing road.
Then for the paving part, are you going to pave it half and half or the whole thing at once? And if so, how much time to drive on it after you've laid the asphalt?
You would install your item 4. You would then install your binder. So your binder is going to bring you up to existing pavement level. You can pave your finished top course the next day and be able to drive on it the same day. Yeah, it's like when you're driving, on any road, and all of a sudden they're paving, you're stopped in traffic.
So you wouldn't anticipate any protracted closure of the road to facilitate any of this work?
No, and that kind of notice we could give to Dr. Stern so he knows
Right.
We're going to pave on this day from this time to that time, kind of thing.
Is there, we did the site walk and I don't remember, I do recall your house at the end. And then Jack and I were looking at the fire hydrants and whatnot on that road. Remember that? Are there any other houses along that road?
No.
That's it. I was going to say, because I would say, can you extend the construction notification to the other residents on the road? But it doesn't sound like there are any.
So there's one at the very beginning, isn't there?
Yes.
Yes, but it also fronts the other road.
What estimate, is that about a quarter of a mile into Dr. Sturman's house? Would you say about a quarter of a mile?
From that side to my house, another quarter of a mile.
Yeah. It's quite a long distance.
Yeah, it's good distance. You will be happy to know that the town is going to plow up to the turnaround.
So I've been plowing that, again, I've been plowing personally that road for 35 years. And taking the dead trees off and letting all the rest.
And what was the reason for it never being adopted as a town road?
Because it's Chenera.
Well,
Then it was existed before we had zoning. You have to realize that a lot of the town was developed sight unseen, as a matter of fact.
Back in the day.
Yeah, I think this dates back to the late 30s. I
And
think
it never
Shamrock
met
was
the
late
town
30s.
standards for the road construction.
Right.
This will, and this has been reviewed with the highway department as well.
And now there will be some upkeep of the road
Yes, to the hammerhead.
to the hammerhead.
Yes.
Correct.
Are you satisfied?
To the end.
Okay. Any other public comment?
Have someone on the phone, Councilman.
Yeah, somebody on the Zoom said they have
Oh, is that who that was? Oh, somebody come in, Paul?
a voice from a.
Whoever's on the Zoom, would you please identify yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Nelson Ramirez, and I live on the property at 232 Tomahawk Street that goes right against 12 Hillside. I'd like to politely ask, what will they be building there? Is it a residential building, or would it be commercial?
It'll be a 3-bedroom residence.
Okay. Will they be building into the open space?
The open area now would become part of the septic system.
Is the question referring to the open area of that lot or the space off of that parcel?
The open space off of it. I know there's a property, there's a house right there, and then to the other side there's Somers open space. So I'm wondering if they're going to be building into the open space, or are they going to be staying on their property line?
Their construction will take place inside the confines of their property lines.
Okay, because we didn't know what was happening at all. When do you anticipate construction starting?
Good question.
Probably next year, probably in 2023.
Okay, and do you have any idea how long it could last?
The actual road work would be done within a month. And then the site development usually runs about 6 months. 6 to 8 months for the house construction.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is it anyone else zooming for this application? No. Then I make a motion, we close the public hearing with the option of 10-day period for written comment. There's a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'm assuming that before we can still direct staff to prepare a resolution, but we will need to hear from the fire department at some point.
Yes, and I guess I would advise that if for some reason that input is different than it has been to the past and it changes the site plan, the applicant would need to come back.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that we direct staff to prepare a resolution, please, for this
I'll
application.
second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Looks like you're gonna be a little busy, Dave.
I better get going.
You better get-
Or I won't go
Hello,
home.
hello. Can
Yes.
you guys still hear me by any chance?
I'm sorry?
Yes, this is Nelson Ramirez. Can you still
Yes.
hear me?
Yes, yes.
I just wanted to get clarification. Is it a 3-family home that's being built there?
No, 3-bedroom. 3-bedroom.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I got that right.
Yeah, the builder has to conform with the zoning codes in that area. And commercial would not be allowed, and nor would a multifamily without certain approvals. So this is
Okay,
just a standard residential house, is the way I understand the plan to be.
Evening.
Okay. Thank you.
Next is New York SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless. It's an application for a special use permit for a wireless telecommunication facility at 294 Route 100. The application is for antenna modifications on the existing monopole tower. The property is in the OB 100 zoning district. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. As the chairman indicated, this is an application for a modification to an existing facility. It is an eligible facilities request in that it meets certain requirements provided by the federal government and the FCC, such that it is shall be approved in an expedited fashion. I will let the board know that we did receive comments from the engineering consultant as well as the town planner. We are in the process of addressing those comments to the extent they are applicable to an eligible facilities request, and we will be providing those responses to this board, or if this board feels satisfactory that the provision of the responses can be subject to an approval, we would request that the board approve the eligible facilities request.
Steve, I think we'll look for a little guidance here.
Sure. So this this facility and this project is essentially replacement and retrofit of existing antennas in the same location as they currently exist on the poles, correct?
Yes, I believe that there are the removal and the installation of 3. If you want, I can put the plans up on the board.
Nope, just I'm making sure I understand. I think that's.
Yes,
the pole is not getting taller. The antennas are not getting longer or wider.
The antennas are going to be in the same location away from the pole. The pole is not getting taller. They're going to be the same location on the height of the pole. There will be replacing the equipment that is existing on the tower. And
does any work at the base of the tower defeat or otherwise change any of the visual screening that is in place at the site?
No, everything that will be done on the tower within the compound.
So it's more like replacement as opposed to a big modification. Is that
it is
correct term?
It is, and the town code requires modifications, including like this, to be an amended special use permit, which is why the applicant is here before the board. The town code also has certain requirements for a structural engineer to confirm that the modifications don't change the rating of the tower or cause any additional hazards. The town code also does require a radio frequency analysis prepared by a suitably qualified engineer to confirm that the new equipment that's being installed does not change those things that we can't see, the radio frequency waves, in a way that would be harmful. So our comments request those things. In addition, we are also requesting some additional analysis or comment from the applicant to understand, as part of the special use permit that has been issued and is now being amended, there are provisions for emergency power and access to the site when there is power loss in the area, so that we as the town understand the infrastructure that's serving the public in the town. This is a replacement in kind. It is, since a replacement in the existing location. And so with the applicant's response that there's no changes to the visual impact of the tower, our comments are really to address those elements of the town code.
Board member comments?
No comment.
None. And I just want to, the 294 Route 100 is the IBM facility?
So that is worth some discussion here. Thank you for bringing that up. This board has seen several applications over the past couple of months, all on the same tower, all using different addresses and SBLs. And it is very confusing to the board, to the engineers, to the public, to the applicants.
And to the planner.
And to the planner.
It's always to the planner.
My understanding from the assessor is that there is a subordinate parcel that was created for the purposes of taxation for the cell tower itself, but that parcel number does not show up on any tax maps because there are no formal meets and bounds associated with it. It's not a subdivided parcel. So for the purposes of the agendas here and for public review, we are using the address and tax map number of the underlying parcel, which in this case is 294 Route 100, tax map number 17.19-1-1, which is the IBM parcel. Long answer to your short question. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you said it for the record too.
I think we've been historically, we've not had a public hearing on this.
That's correct.
That's correct. You
Okay.
do have the ability to waive the public hearing.
But we
Yes.
need a motion to waive it, right?
Correct.
Okay, if the board's okay with that, I'll make a motion, we waive the public hearing for this.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Somebody saying something? No. Oh, okay. And then I'll make a motion that we direct staff to prepare resolutions for the special permit, site plan and secret contingent on receipt of the requested information.
Thank you.
Wait, we didn't do it yet.
Hang on. And this is contingent on you ascertaining
Right.
that everything that you asked is applicable to this plan, right? No changes in platform, no changes in height, no aesthetics.
Just said that.
Correct. We would appreciate, so in our review memo, we identified both items that we feel are important that the applicant respond to, and those that are part of a special use permit approval that really don't apply to an application of this type. In our comment letter, those are items 3A to 3E, I believe.
Right.
Where they're really talking about gap analysis and things like that that don't really apply to an application of this type. So either through direct action of the board or professional judgment between the planner and myself, we can review those. But if the board would like to directly say that those requirements are waived, then that's fine too.
Yeah, think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I got a motion. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
West side of him.
Next is T-Mobile Northeast LLC. Their application is for special use permit wireless telecommunications facility located at 121 Route 100. And the tax map on that is 38.17-1-5. And this is also application for antenna and equipment modifications on the existing monopole tower and at the tower base. For the record, this property is located on the west side of Amawalk Street, 260 feet from the intersection of Parent Street in the R80 zone. And I believe following right along, it's the same thing. This is just, there's no, I hate the word modification because it really isn't. It's more like replacement. Would that be a better word?
Correct. There's replacement and installation of antennas at the existing location on the tower. It's not increasing the height of the tower. It's not increasing the width of the tower. This is a tree pole.
And nothing at the base.
And it'll be camouflaged in the manner that the existing equipment is camouflaged on the tower.
And then just for simplification, this is the Amato Farm property, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
This is how I'm keeping track of
Yes.
this in my head. So whether that's official. or
This is
not.
the tree.
This is the tree one. Got it. Okay. And you said that you would continue to camouflage.
It's going to be
bristles.
camouflaged
Yeah.
in a similar manner to as it's camouflaged now. Yes.
All right, then I'll make a motion that we waive the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then I guess I have a two-part to this is we'll waive any additional information at the discretion of the board. That's from your comment letter, 3C and 3F.
3C to 3F, correct.
Yep. And then my motion is to direct staff to prepare a resolution for the special permit, site plan and secret contingent on receipt of the requested information. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you.
The end is in sight. New York State SMSA partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless. This application is for special use permit at the wireless telecommunications facility at the West Hill Drive South, tax map 17.05-20-2. And this is for antenna and equipment modifications on the existing monopole tower and at the tower base. And for the record,
Before you continue
Yep.
any further, I'd like to state for the record that I live at Heritage Hills, 919D. It's my primary residence. It is not near, adjacent to, or in a place where I can see the cell tower, so I am not directly impacted by it.
okay. And for the record, this site is at the Heritage Hills Water Tank, which is 250 West Hill Drive South in the DRD zoning district.
Good evening. Here's Michael Sheridan, attorney with Snyder and Snyder, attorneys for New York SMSA, limited partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless. Again, this is an eligible facilities request on an existing tower. Verizon is looking to replace and install equipment at its existing facility, and it's not increasing the height of the tower or the width of the tower, and will not increase any area of the compound at the base of the tower.
I did want to just clarify that because I think there was an internal discrepancy on whether I think the structural analysis report indicated that it analyzed an increase in height, and I just wanted to clarify for the record what was proposed.
Yeah, my understanding, I did go back to the engineer. My understanding is there is a discrepancy in the height. It does not deal with Verizon Wireless's equipment. It deals with the equipment above it, and there will be that will be rectified, and we'll provide you with that documentation.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Sure. So in this applicant, Chairman, similar request for information from us in our engineering review, consistent with town code. Items that can be waived at the discretion of the board in our comment letter were items 6A through E and 7.
Okay. And
if the board so chooses.
And going along what we've done for the earlier part of the evening, I make a motion that we waive the public hearing on this also.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then following up, I ask staff to prepare a resolution for the special permit, site plan and secret contingent on the receipt of the requested information. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave.
We've talked about this before. Hopefully we can get to the point where this is just handled internally, these kinds of things.
Yeah, I've mentioned that to you,
Yeah.
I think, previously. One of the suggestions that I would make, given that these are basically you're swapping parts out, is that this would be more of a administrative process with the building department with engineering oversight. That would not include something, if somebody came in with a new carrier, they still come before your board for a special permit. But here, when we're just swapping
Parts.
equipment out, swapping parts in and out, I think it would be, and it saves you time from your busy schedule, and it really puts the
I
work
think-
at the building department.
I think new tower builds, obviously, and co-location should be reviewed by us.
Yes.
Right.
Maintenance doesn't need to be.
What's that?
Maintenance doesn't need to be.
Right, maintenance,
Right,
which
right,
is, I
correct.
think, and I agree, it does fall into that.
And this
We're
is a
swapping
safeguard.
out- We're upgrading, equipment,
Right. The safeguard is somebody has to inspect it also.
which now that's where buildings comes in.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
In
So
conjunction with engineering to make sure that this is a good time for us to do an annual inspection or whatever's required, right? Make sure that this new equipment can be held up by the
Right.
tower that's already there. And then once you guys, and if it's not, then you can open it up and bring it back to us.
exactly.
As a general rule.
Not that we don't like seeing it. It's just,
Right. Right.
I'm sure you had something else you'd rather do until 9:30 at night.
Yeah.
Good night.
Okay.
Take
Just
care.
get 5 bars at my house.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Make it happen.
Last on our agenda tonight is Voltage Charging LLC site plan modification for the installation of 2 EV charging stations at Somers Commons. That address is 880 Route 6 in Baldwin Place. And the application is to connect to existing overhead electrical line and run conduit underground from the existing utility pole to electrical support equipment and 2 EV chargers in the Somers Commons parking lot.
Chairman, if I may,
Sure.
and I apologize for interrupting. I just want to clarify the comment about maintenance on these towers, that the applicants, the owners and the operators on the cell phone towers, if they need to replace a piece of equipment with an identical piece of equipment because it broke, it's malfunctioning, et cetera, they don't need to come to this board.
Okay.
They're coming to this board because they are putting a different transmitter on there that has different performance characteristics, has different weights and sizes, and sometimes those modifications do impact the equipment at the base of the tower, or in the case of another application before the board, and it does happen to be a co-location, it does involve some trenching outside of that. So fully in favor, and Dave and I are in complete alignment on finding ways to streamline this, but I did want to make that clarification for the record that these are not maintenance activities. These are upgrades and modifications.
Do these changes have to go through town code? Is that how it takes place?
Yes, because right now, the applicant has to come before you. It's the way the code is.
Because
written.
existing town
It's the
code.
Because
It
it's a
has to
special
come-
use permit.
Right, it has to come before your board.
Yeah,
That means we have to modify the code.
right.
Yes, you need to
Correct,
modify the
correct.
code, right.
Be a memo to the town supervisor.
You give a memo, you know.
Yeah, procedurally, yeah, there would be a memo to the town board. They would need to entertain it and any proposed change to the code, particularly because this relates to zoning, has to come back to your board for review and recommendation. So you're going to have an opportunity to review that
Now,
before anything.
didn't we, or we just explored this idea in the past? I felt like we did a memo to the town board
We did-
about.
I don't know if we did a memo. We've been tossing it around.
We did changes in the past that, because it used to be handled by it gets too complicated
Right.
even to repeat what it was, but we didn't have to do something and we did it under our prior planner, but we have more to do here with the maintenance.
I'm sorry, we just
I
ran over.
apologize
You'll
for
have to
that.
come back on.
All right.
Welcome.
Good evening, Sam Lee, Volta Charging. With me on my left is Alec Glad, our attorney with Cuddy and Fader. Thank you for having us back. The last time we were here, we were discussing the application for 2 EV charging stations in Somers Commons by the New York Sports Club. The last time we had spoken, the planning board had referred us to the ARB to look for guidance from them. We've had a few productive meetings with them, and they've issued a memo with some of the comments that they've had. And so had the planning board been able to look at that memo yet?
Yes.
Okay.
We saw it. We certainly did. So I assume you've made some changes.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I wanted to do is, before Alec comes up here and kind of talks about, the overall criteria that the ARB was looking for in terms of guidelines for what's permissible in terms of our signage and signs like ours. I wanted to clarify a few things on this memo. And the first thing would be that, the video advertising playing moves too quickly. I just want to stress that we don't have any video on any of our stations ever. We have the capability to do static displays. Sometimes if towns permit it, we might have some dynamic movement, but there's absolutely no video or audio. I just wanted to clarify that because that was mentioned in the memo. In regards to the colors of, the border of the stations, that is something that we do have. We can always turn that off. That is not a big deal for us at all. There was another comment, regarding, the stations being too close to the front and being too bright. There are ways that we kind of work around this is the placement and the orientation of the screens, the way that they're facing. Even with our screens, we are able to variably dim. So the brightness level that, they might have seen in, I believe, Ridgefield, that can be brought down lower with our newer stations and our newer screens. Hours of operations, right now, our charging stations would operate 24/7. But, most towns, most property owners, most grocers that we work with, they don't want people loitering and, charging and abusing that system. So we propose that an hour before the store opens and an hour after the store closes, that our chargers and our screens would be off. So those are just some of the things. And in terms of distraction, I know there was a comment here about our screens potentially being distracting. I believe most of the ARB members had gone out to look at our stations. Most of the members had stated that our stations are very unassuming, not too distracting. There was one member who made that comment, but she didn't say she herself was distracted, just that when she had went, it is a possibility. So those are some of the things that I just kind of wanted to clarify with you. And then I'm going to let Alec come up here and kind of discuss the guidelines.
Thank you.
Good evening, Alec Glad from Cuddy and Fader. So we are in receipt of the July 5th planner memo. We generally, agree with the process that was laid out in that memo. We agree that it is a permitted accessory use. And sorry if I'm rehashing anything. I know I'm kind of new to the game here. And also, we do think it would be appropriate, if you're so inclined, that the draft or the examples of zoning text amendments that we provided you, that those could be utilized as conditions of approval for this site. And I'm not sure that we do need to go to the zoning text amendment route because first and foremost, I think the EV charging itself is a clearly permitted accessory use. There's actually already an EV Go charging station in Somers Commons already. It's located by the entrance to New York 118. And also your planner has advised you that it is permitted as accessory. And then with the internally illuminated sign component, section 170, 126A3 of your sign code does permit illuminated signs that are not flashing, fluttering, or revolving. Like Sam outlined, this isn't a video, it's not flashing, doesn't have any sound or any kind of distracting characteristics to it. So we do think that we do squarely fit within the confines of the code as it exists. And we do think that the planning board is the appropriate authority to be issuing an approval, subject, of course, to any relevant conditions that you think are appropriate.
But you do understand that we delegate to the architectural review board signage issues.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And I understand they gave their comments back.
What is the sign? What is the dimensions of that sign again?
9 square feet. It's 4 feet by 2 1/4.
Yeah.
Is it single-sided or can it be double?
It is double-sided.
It is double.
Yep. So it's intended to get the pedestrian foot traffic going to and from the store, in addition to facing the parking stall itself. So it also targets the actual person using the station to charge their car.
Why do we have charging stations that do not? There are existing charging stations at Chase Bank in town, and existing charging stations, as you said, I think in Somers Commons, that have no signs. Why is it necessary to have signs? Because I find this to be a billboard basically set up, and I'm personally find it to be distractive and inappropriate for our community.
Right. So the reason why we do have advertising on our screens is because we provide free and subsidized charging. So all our slower L2 chargers are free to our customers at all times. For our DC fast chargers, they are currently still free. We are working on payments, but those costs will always be subsidized because the revenue that comes in from the ads. So we would always be providing a more competitive rate than all our competitors.
Yeah, but it worked successfully with people who want to charge their cars. If they want to charge them at home, they pay for the electricity. And if they want to charge them on your stations, they pay for the electricity. That doesn't mean they have to have advertisements so that everybody else who has nothing to do with charging of the cars has to watch advertisements. I'm sorry, I have a problem with this.
Okay, so some industry context here is, I also believe I mentioned this earlier at our last meeting, is that in this industry, there's a lot of investment going on in one site. One site for our competitors can cost them up to $700,000, close to $1 million for a 4-station install. They're banking on the fact that they're going to return that investment based on the charge. And right now, there just isn't enough EV cars on the road that utilize these chargers to guarantee that money will come back in. And so when you're looking to partner with an EV provider, you want to make sure that they're going to be sticking around and they're not, going to just be leaving clunky equipment on your parking lots after 2-3 years. You want to be working with partners who have a sustainable revenue that's going to keep them going on for 5, 10, 20 years. And we believe that's why, our media revenue and our media model is so important to EV charging currently.
And argue with that.
What?
I mean, the only argument that you have on that is whether or not this business model fits in the town zones, right? I think that's part of it. And if it does fit, does it conform to the legislation that we have, the town code that we have? Now, my question would be, do we know, and you, Nancy, might know this, do we know what year that was written? That piece of legislation where it was never conceived that a 55-inch television set TV flat screen could be used as distractive advertising.
Well, isn't this the problem the ARB board had?
Right.
This is,
Well, exactly. So,
Yeah.
you know, so let's assume the code was written in the 30s where you could do neon and fluorescent colors on a flat sign, and size requirements were always part of that and everything else. But now we've gone into a very contemporary digital age where now we use a medium that was never thought of for advertising before. And again, kudos to the concept. And I'm a businessman myself, and I think that that's a positive business model to help offset and subsidize the losses that you'll have from your primary investment. However, does it fit in Somers?
Well, that's the purview of the architectural review board. It's not our argument, it's their argument. They're handling it. They're telling.
Legally, does it fit in Somers?
No, but what we,
It's our argument.
but we can handle that too. The charging stations in near Chase Bank. Okay. I have visited that probably 100 times, and I've seen maybe 1 or 2 cars being charged there. That means that maybe 3. Okay. And maybe that means that they've been charged for like 3 or 4 hours at a time within a month period. However, the signs are going to be shown 24, no, I don't know about 24 hours a day, but whatever amount of days, 12 hours a day, constantly for a month. I just don't think that it's an appropriate use. It's a billboard with charging stations. I would rather have a charging station that people pay.
I agree.
They bought their cars. They usually put in a charging station in their house, and if they need excess charging stations, they can go find them, but not necessarily at the disadvantage of the town, which doesn't have billboard signs anywhere anyway. The ARB deals with signs on stores that advertise for the store. There's a reason for it. I am strongly against this.
Yeah, I mean, I rarely agree with Bruce, but in this case, I have to agree with him on this. You know, the EV station, I get that. It is permissible here in Somers. And for the record, I am an EV owner and I utilize EV stations when I'm not at home. So I get that. But I don't stay at the EV charger where I'm going to be the consumer of the advertising that you're putting up. I plug in and I leave, which is, to my understanding, the model for most chargers. Some fast charge situations on the road, you could sit in your car, and Tesla's got it so that you can do things while you're sitting in your car. But my understanding, unless you're putting the charger in the front of the vehicle, right, where now the driver can see the advertising like a drive up, you're targeting everyone else but the EV owner with your advertising to subsidize my usage of the electricity, which I need for my car, and I'm not paying for because your advertisers are paying it for me. Correct me if I'm wrong. But your target audience is not the EV consumer. Your target audience is anyone else that's going to see the advertising on the sign, which is why I, as a business person, would even choose to advertise on your sign. So I think you're conflating the concept of, well, yeah, EVs chargers are legal in town, and they are. But it's this part of the advertising that you're sticking in on it that, to me, I have a hard time merging the two.
Right. And so some of the benefits of the advertisements that we run on our screens is we provide advertising for local businesses around us where they can easily buy flips or impressions on our screens to, you know, whether it's a pizza store and they want to advertise, you know, two pizzas for $5 kind of deal. All that we can do that. We don't only work with enterprises and huge campaigns. We also work with towns to provide free community messaging. So I do believe there is value being provided to everyone in the town, whether it's the driver, whether it's just, you know, a bystander or someone shopping in the area.
How does one book advertising time with Volta?
And are you speaking about when the town would do it or when a business would do it?
Just I sell widgets and I want to advertise the widgets on your screen. Is it you mentioned a per flip basis?
Right. So then you would go on our website and then you would be connected with someone who a representative who would work with you on that.
And how do you sell the advertising in increments of time, of size, of duration?
So we sell flips of 8 seconds. That is, the time or duration of ads that we sell, but we sell them with impressions. So whether we're selling 15,000 impression or 30,000 impressions, I'm not a marketing person, so I can't get too into detail on that. But those are the two main factors: are impressions and the time of the flip, which is 8-second flips.
And that's got nothing to do with charge on electric vehicles.
That is correct.
Yeah, right. And you say you don't have moving images, but if that image is changing every 8 seconds, as far as I'm concerned, that's a moving image.
And it's distracting, which is
extremely distracting
with our town code.
I want to hear some other board member comments, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as you have this signage, what is your perception about the distance that a consumer of the signage would be from the sign in order to engage with it? In other words, do I have it because you're selling something, right? So is the placement and part of what you're selling say, okay, we need the consumer, the viewer has to be within 10 feet, 20 feet. What is your aim? Are you trying to reach people on the other side of the street?
And how
No.
loud is it?
I'm sorry. Sorry. Okay. So to address your question, personally, when I go to our stations, I can't see what's being displayed on our screens until I'm about between 10 and 20 feet. That's kind of the maximum range that I can go before, it becomes illegible. The reason why we place our stations also closer to the front of the store is to keep it away from the right of way. We don't want drivers on the main road to be distracted by our screens. They're not pointed at them. They're not visible. And, even driving through some of the lots when I visit our sites, I'm oftentimes looking for our stations and, I can't see what's on the screen until I get closer to that distance.
And a second follow-up question, is there any built-in sort of motion detector or measurement where you're getting metrics on the number of people who are passing by within a certain number of feet of your station as you're selling this advertising to the consumer, to the widget maker? What are you saying we get so many sets of eyes, so many looks?
You call them impressions?
Yes.
So the impressions are
How do
what
you-
you're putting out, but how are you measuring the consumption?
So we use something called ROAS or ROAS, and that means return on ad spent. So we're looking at kind of closer site specific areas where we run campaigns, and we'll kind of do a sample of, the businesses that we work with, the grocery chains, and the increase in sales that that they were expecting to see and what they did see pre and post campaign. So those are kind of the studies and the research that we're doing to measure the effectiveness of our screens.
So it's inferential, really. Okay.
Correct.
So it's estimated. There's no direct so I know impression in social media to be how many confirmed views have clicked or seen something.
Right.
Is that using in the same vernacular, in the same context?
Impression? Inferential. Yeah.
Inferential.
Is the most. Yeah.
I got you.
I feel the same way that Bruce and Chris have expressed themselves, that this is not a particularly great fit for our community.
The other question I have is, there are dimensions that the sign that the ARB has for signs all throughout Somers, and I don't think any of them come within the square footage of the billboard that you're talking about. I think I forgot when I was on the ARB that the signs are sometimes 12 inches high or maybe 15 inches high, and the length of a certain portion of the frontage of the building, you're way in excess of that measurement. Also, they're not multicolored. They are usually fairly clean and precise. I just find this to be, especially for our community, that this is not appropriate for as Nancy started off this whole meeting about the small little hamlet that we used to be. This is not appropriate. Sorry.
I'd just like to pose a question to the board. Has anyone been able to see any of our stations in person yet?
No.
No,
Okay.
I have not.
I only saw the ones that you gave us
Yeah,
links to,
What you
Okay.
sent.
which I
us.
did review.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have a recollection of seeing one after you presented. It's
Okay.
really not fair for me to make an assessment from that.
Got it. Yeah. Similarly with the ARB, our first meeting with them, their comments, their concerns were, exactly the same as the planning board. After they had visited, their opinion of our signs and our stations did change. It went from more of a drastic hard no, like this doesn't fit our town, to, I think this is something that we can work with. I know the memo itself doesn't state any of that. It's missing some of the context from our conversation. But the ARB, after seeing the stations in person, did have a different outlook on it. So, I'll just like the planning board to keep that.
Do you have any sites where they're smaller?
No, our screen is one
The
size.
screen is a set screen size.
Correct, yeah.
Your screen is the same size as my TV in my living room, okay? And I can see my living room from 20 or 30 feet away. And I'm not crazy about having my living room TV screen out on in a parking lot in Somers Commons. Sorry.
I think in fairness to the applicant, where is the nearest site that we could physically see one? Did you say there's one in Richfield?
There is one in Richfield, and I believe most of the ARB went to that one to take a look.
Can you send that address
Absolutely
to the plant, and then Dave will send it out to us? Because I kind of go.
Can we do an out-of-state site walk?
I definitely go along with the negative comments so far. I don't think it's appropriate for our town, but I don't want to. I want to be fair to you. I want to see it and then make that comment.
But we don't decide the sign.
I know, but what
We have to decide.
I think ARB threw it back into our lap because
They did.
There isn't anything that they can go on. They don't have
Their
any
quote,
legal guidance.
can I quote their memo?
Yeah.
For the record, it says they, meaning the ARB, advised the town to develop criteria for consideration of what it deems permissible for illuminated outdoor advertising devices.
Right.
Right. So that tells me that we don't have anything codified that pertains to illuminated outdoor advertising.
That's not our job. That's the town board.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
But for us to review the two aspects of legality within the town for our board purposes is whether or not the permissible use of an EV station is okay in Somers, which we've pretty much all said.
Yeah, that's a separate issue. Yeah, we're all in.
And it is, and that's
agreement
part of
with
the
that.
plan. So
Yeah.
we have
we
to
already
agree
have
upon that.
Right.
We already approved
But
them.
the hang up here is the sign part of it. The additional part of the EV charging, the town has had several campaigns to go green. We embrace this progression of clean energy and things along those lines. So I could tell you that the EV station is not the issue. It is whether or not a 55-inch illuminated sign with 8-second flips on top of your charging station conforms to current code. Yes? Is that, I wish.
Which doesn't exist. Which
Yeah,
doesn't.
can you guys hear me? This is Joe Ariel.
Oh, it is.
I was going to say, I wish council was here.
Yeah. So I've been here all night. Actually, you left the best for last here, but I just want to say, generally speaking, when something's unclear in the zoning code, the initial job of determining what the code requires is the building inspector and then potentially the ZBA for interpretive issues. One of the things that the town attorney's office, which of course I'm associated with, but Roland Baroni kind of leading that team, has suggested is that the cleanest way to deal with this, and I would suggest even for the applicant, is to address it through a code provision if that's what the town board is inclined to do.
Yes.
Because it would clarify it with precision. Right now, as the code sits, I think all you can do is your typical planning review, and let the applicant and the other potentially involved agencies sort out what their jurisdiction is.
Let me make a statement with regard to the ARB. Isn't it my understanding, Joe, that the ARB deals with signage related to buildings, on the fronts of buildings, on the backs of buildings, or maybe a flag near a building? But
No,
they all relate to buildings.
They do freestanding too, Bruce.
They do.
Yeah, but they're all relating to a
They don't
building.
have that's the building.
I think I understand where Bruce is going with this, though, because I have to tell you that I guess I'm speaking just for myself here, but I have been doing this for 30 years myself. It's not entirely clear to me that the only interpretation that's necessary here is whether or not this kind of advertising can be properly associated with the EV use. It's also whether this is even a sign. And I'm not trying to be facetious, but it's one of these things where the modern world has changed a lot of, a lot. I understand Bruce's question. It's, whether or not it's even a sign in the traditional sense,
right,
is probably also problematic for ARB.
Well, the word advertising fits on a sign and it fits on a TV screen.
And it's in public.
Well, it's some kind of advertising, that's for sure. But I can't tell whether it's a commercial or a billboard or a small sign.
Right.
And so that is why, by the way, the code amendment is the cleanest and probably ultimately smartest way to do it, because I think there's more than one interpretive issue here.
Yes.
So, Joe, are you suggesting we recommend that the applicant go back to the town board?
Yes.
Yes.
Joe?
Or why can't we refer the problem?
Well, you can.
Professionals.
Planning board could refer to the
Okay.
town board.
Sorry, that's what I understood.
You can do that.
Now, Joe, did you make mention that with the uncertainty aside, we should still look at the plan, the site plan, if you will, for the EV station without the sign?
What I'm suggesting is that you can do that, because right now, because it's unclear, it is neither unlawful nor clearly legal, right? But there is a site planning issue or issues, right? A typical site planning aspect of this which you can consider. I think where you need to stop short is in approving it until you get some guidance from the board.
Right.
And to be clear, I don't think you have to do that. I'm just saying you could do that.
But basically, they've already made the statement that they're not interested in putting the EV station without this signage. So
right.
that's where they're going to get their money from. So the idea of approving an EV station without a sign is superfluous.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, but that's their risk, guys.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Like, in other words, if they want to process it, inclined to take a look at it, you can. But anything you do with it is going to be with the caveat that it is outside your jurisdiction to determine whether or not this is lawful, and these other agencies, i.e., town board, building inspector, et cetera, need to weigh in.
Right.
So in other words, just to make sure I'm understanding this, Joe, this is Vicky. It allows the applicant at their own risk of money and investment to pursue a parallel track of reviewing this before the planning board while they also bring it to the town board for consideration of a text amendment. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, because it streamlines the process potentially for the applicant, which if they're inclined to go that route is fair to them, right? They make some progress in getting your comments, et cetera. And then they go sort out, and I'm sorry to the applicant to be referring to you as if you're not in the room, but but you go sort out, what direction needs to be taken with these other issues. But in the meantime, you're making some progress.
And we also would just like the opportunity to alternatively talk to the building inspector about an interpretation to see if there's enough there for him to render. We just have to talk about that
I think you
offline.
should do that.
Yes. Yeah, whether we want to try to talk to the building inspector or if we think town board might be a better route.
And I'll
But-
just say, I think I'm probably the outlier in the room. I am not seeing anything inherently wrong with if we'll call it a sign. I think something within this room, it would seem too big, but then you take it outside and you're in the open space, it's different. I think this is a novel way of addressing a coming problem of how do we provide charging in challenging economic times. It's a lot of unknowns out there. So I think it's really intriguing and interesting, and I have a very open mind toward it. I think I'm the outlier here, but that's what I got.
But send us that address, please, and then I think we'll all just take a look.
I'm not against this in its entirety. If you can prove to me personally that this conforms to the town codes, and that's what the next steps have to be.
Yes.
Right. And again, I told you, I'm pro EV charging 100%. My concern is this little extra part that's kind of gray as far as our legislation is concerned. Right. And it's a legislation of a bucolic town in Westchester County. So for that, in your project presentation in its entirety, I'm not convinced yet that it may be worth your time to present all of it, because I don't know where it's going to lay as far as the legal aspect of it is concerned. Because
let me make one statement that the federal government has with the new transportation infrastructure bill has allotted $7.5 billion for EV stations to be set up across the country, usually in highways, in order to replace gas stations. But none of them include, as far as I know, any kind of advertising situation. So I think, especially not a 55-inch screen. So I think this is something we have to take into consideration. And no store in Somers is allowed to have a 9-foot sign in front of their store. That's inappropriate unless you happen to be. It's not appropriate here.
All right, I hope we gave you some direction.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
No,
Thank you.
nail down the permissibility of the sign.
All right, and send us the address, please.
Yes, of course.
Oh, yeah, Richfield.
Yes.
I'm there all the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Thank you.
Our next meeting is Wednesday, August 10th, 2022. Thank everyone. Long night. Appreciate all your effort tonight and work.
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Absolutely.
Since I held half of it.
Is there a second?
Second.
On favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.